Hello and welcome back to Beckler Guitars and Repair. Excuse my voice, I'm just getting over being sick. My throat basically just closed up. I actually had to do a gig last night, so that was interesting. I pulled it off. I had to drink like hot tea all day just to be able to do it. But anyway, today we're going to go through the rest of the video on this crazy Psychedelicaster. So this is a parts caster that I put together with a $100 kit and some Geiger parts that were provided. In the first video, if you missed that, you might want to catch up on that. The link is in the description. We went through the whole kit building process. I went through spray painting this, hand painting this, finishing this with like a gloss finish, and then putting the whole thing together. When the video ended, we were just about to wire this thing up and then check the setup and then hear how it sounds. So let's go ahead and jump right in, right back at that part where we're just about to wire it up, and we can finish up this Psychedelicaster build video. All right. The wiring is all complete. Here's a look at my wiring. It's pretty straightforward. I downloaded a schematic from SeymourDuncan.com. They're a great little resource if you're looking for wiring schematics. They got a lot. Let's go ahead and check this with a multimeter to make sure it's working. So I plugged it in. It seems to be working. So on the bridge pickup, it's reading an 11.6 and then split. That brings it down to a 5.89. And then our neck position is reading a 7.39. And the middle position, 4.56. Or split, a 3.30. So before I do a restring and a setup on this, I'm going to make sure that the frets are all good. Again, this is a cheap kit. This is just over $100 for this whole kit. So I want to make sure that the frets are where they need to be. Using my notch straight edge, the neck has no relief in it at all. It's dead straight. So that's good. That's where I like to set my guitars. Now I'm just going to check with a fret rocker, which is a machined like super level piece of steel, to see if there's any rocking in between the frets. Because that means we have uneven frets and they might buzz if I get it down to the action that I want. So let's check. Starting to check the frets. They're pretty unlevel. There's a lot of different rocking spots. So I'm going to have to do a full fret level and recrown on this. Which, I mean, you know, you get what you pay for these cheap kits. I'm sure they don't spend a whole lot of time on the frets. So to get the action super low, like how I like, I'm going to have to do a fret level on this. So it's an unfinished maple fingerboard as well, so I'm going to have to tape off the whole thing. Then I'm going to file everything down level, and then recrown, polish, and buff. So let's get started. Let's have a look at the frets. So yeah, they're all now super shiny, super level, and super smooth. And it wasn't such a big job. It probably took about 20 minutes or so to do the fret level and polish and everything. So it wasn't an extensive job, just some frets were a little bit high. I've definitely seen worse on a lot higher end guitars. And I wanted to share a little trick for taping maple necks. So typically on maple necks you have to tape up the whole fretboard so it doesn't make a big mess on the maple once you're done doing fretwork, because it'll stain. But I like to put a strip of tape on the bottom here, so once I'm done doing the fretwork, instead of having to individually
remove each piece of tape. I attach them all to this one strand that goes across the bottom. And theoretically, I should be able to take all the tape off at once. Let's see how that works. And there we go. So obviously you can't do it on this section because you can't put tape all the way across, but for the rest it worked really well. So now we've got this really nice shiny level frets, and the unfinished maple board isn't stained at all. When you spend $100 on a kit guitar, you expect it's going to need a little bit of work. This thing's been pretty good so far. Only thing really needed was a fret level, but not even a major one. But this nut is cut like crazy high. So if you look at the action at the nut here, when I do the 3rd fret, this should be almost against that 1st fret. So this thing is crazy high. So what I'm going to have to do is use my fret files and file these down considerably. But what that's going to end up doing is the nut slots are going to be way too deep. So the string is basically going to be fully encased in that nut slot. And that can lead to tuning stability issues. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to file these down till they're exactly where I want them. Then when I use the 3rd fret, that the string is basically sitting right on top of that 1st fret. And then I'm going to Dremel the top to decrease the depth of those nut slots so that the string is basically just resting in the slot, not fully encased. Another little trick you can do for this, when you're making a new nut, basically what I'm doing now, because I have to go down so deep, is that you can use a little pencil like this. So what I've done is I've sanded this directly in half. I take the pencil and I put it right on these 2 frets and make a mark. That should be right about where you want the depth of your nut slots to go. And then you can kind of use that as kind of a reference, and then makes it a little faster. So I've got my E string up to tension, and when I fret that 3rd fret, it's almost directly on the fret. So that's about as low as I want to go. So I'm going to do that for the rest of these strings. Alright, the guitar is all restrung, set up, intonated. And it plays quite well actually, so let's go ahead and check the setup. Using my notch straight edge, we can see that there is very little relief in the neck. That's usually how I like to set my guitars. There's the small gap between the straight edge and the fingerboard, so that means the truss rod is set nice and tight. And then here in the 3rd fret area, you can see when I use the 3rd fret, the string is almost resting right on that 1st fret. So this thing, the nut wasn't cut very well when I first got it, but I used my nut files and just made that a little bit better, so there's good action here now. And the nut is now well cut. So at the 12th fret, we can see we've got nice low action. So on the low E, we're sitting at just between a 0.75 and a 1 millimeter. And just a tiny bit lower on the high E, so just below 0.75 millimeters. So yeah, very nice low action. And I'm just going to quickly go over each single fret to make sure there's no buzzing or fretting out anywhere. I typically like to speed up this part, so if you want to hear it in real time, just slow down your player to 25%. I did get some fretting out on these last 2 notes on the high E, but it's just because my pickup is a little bit high. I'm just going to lower that just to make sure that is the problem. Yeah, that was the problem. The pickup was just a tad too high. So yeah, very nice low action with no fretting out or buzzing anywhere. And the neck feels quite nice. It's quite a thick neck. It really fills out the palm. It's nice and rounded. And the guitar rings out acoustically quite nicely as well. It's got good sustain. And as far as neck dive goes, this guitar stays right where it should with, yeah, no neck dive. Alright, so now that the guitar is all done, let's go ahead and get some specs. So this thing's weighing in at just over 7 pounds, 7 pounds 6.1 ounces, or 3.35 kilograms. And we've already did the pickup reading, so the bridge pickup was reading like a 12, and the neck pickup is reading just under 8, so like 7.6, something like that. And then when you split the bridge pickup humbucker, it's about half that. I actually quite like the feel of this neck, so let's just check the dimensions again. So it reads a 1.67 inches at the nut, or a 42.59 millimeters. And then at the 12th fret, that is a 2.07 inches, or a 52.66 millimeters. Neck depth of the first fret is a 0.895 inches, so quite chunky, or a 22.73 millimeters. And at the 12th fret, that goes up to 0.97 inches, or 24.69 millimeters. Alright, now this guitar is fully finished. I'm just going to review all the different parts and stuff that we used and what problems we had and just kind of how it turned out. So first, let's look at the headstock. I really like the look of these machine heads, and they do feel like really nice quality. They're super tight. The locking mechanism works really well. I really love locking tuners. They're super light too. They're very lightweight, and yeah, you just can't find kind of funky machine heads like these, so they're pretty cool. And then we've got our little string trees here. I mean, they're just string trees, but they do have a nice, cool aesthetic look to them. I do like the look of the kit's headstock. It's kind of a step up from just a regular one. It's got that kind of shelf on the headstock there. And I did put my badge there. I'm still debating whether or not I want to put a little eyeball there. I'll think about it a little bit more. But I do like the headstock for the kit, and I like the machine heads. The nut is plastic. You could replace that with a bone nut if you wanted, but I just left it as is. And the nut needed a lot of filing. The truss rod seems to work well. It's nice and tight and responsive. The fretwork, when I was using my fret rocker, there was a lot of high frets. If I didn't do the fretwork, I don't think I would be able to get as low of action as it currently has without buzzing. It wasn't an extensive fret level, but there was definitely some higher spots. And but now they're all super polished and buffed and super smooth feeling. And the body is going to be pretty polarizing. I'm not an artist. I kind of made it in the same vein as like the Rocky or the Love Drips. It's just kind of a hand-painted, do-it-yourself kind of flow of consciousness guitar. I didn't use any sort of template or anything. I just basically started painting, and this is kind of how it turned out. It looks like a toddler did it, but it's definitely eye-catching. See what I did there? But no, this would look pretty cool on stage, I think. It would take the right kind of guy to pull it off. And kind of the whole point of this video is to show you, you know, you could buy a kit for an inexpensive kit, and if you know what you're doing, you could really make it play great. And you can be really creative with how it looks. And so yeah, this guitar plays great. I'm waiting to see how it sounds. But depending on which pickups you put in there, you can really control how it sounds as well. As far as the parts go, I really like this pickguard. I think it might be a bit much on this guitar. I haven't really decided yet. Sometimes I look at it and I like it, and other times I don't. This kit this kit actually came with a white pickguard as well. So that's kind of how it looks like with a white pickguard. It's actually not that bad. I think a cream pickguard would be even better than a stark white. Or it came with a black too. And actually black doesn't quite look that bad either. So I guess depending on how wacky you want to get. But this is a really nice resin pickguard in kind of a funky bowling ball swirl color. And I haven't really seen a pickguard like that, so it's nice and thick. Seems to be good quality. And as far as the pickups go, we have to plug it in to hear how they sound. But they look like they're quality components. And yeah, this is a stacked humbucker. So it's like a single coil, two single coils stacked on top of each other. And the neck pickup had cloth wiring. I believe they're using Alnico magnets. So they're kind of vintage style pickups. So yeah, we have to see how they sound. I didn't end up using the Geiger bridge plate because it didn't have the top loader system for strings. Like the holes kind of drilled into this thing. But what I did use was the screws and the saddles. So I think that's kind of the most important part of the tail of the cavity plate is the saddles. So having a nice set of brass saddles on there is great. And I really like this control plate. It's the titanium one with kind of a very unique design on there. But I really like how this three-way switch slot is a little bit angled. Just gives it a little bit more style. And this eyeball is pretty cool for the coil split. I was happy with how that turned out. And yeah, look at the strap buttons. Yeah, all the Geiger parts seemed really high quality, and they're not too expensive. And they're pretty unique in terms of looks. There's a look at that neck plate. And another look at the machine heads. That's the Dopamine series. So yeah, thank you for Geiger for sending out these parts for this build. And I'm going to put a link in the description. That's my affiliate link. So if you go there and spend some money, the channel benefits from it a little bit. So if you could do that, if you're interested in these parts, that would be appreciated. And Geiger is also having a big Black Friday sale. So make sure you check them out because you can get a lot of cool parts for cheap. So as far as the finish goes, it's got that weird like textured finish because it didn't quite sit properly on this particular spray paint because it was that chalky kind of spray paint. I think that had to do with like the finish kind of resisting it in areas because the back isn't like that. And I used a different spray paint for the back. But it's just a quick and dirty, you know, finish job with a spray can. But you can get some pretty decent results. Like from afar, this looks pretty good in terms of, you know, finish quality. If you get close, you know, you do have that weird bumpy nature to it. And on the back, it doesn't have that though. And there's no like drips or anything else like that. So it's pretty well done in the back. And the sides are not bad. There's a couple spots where the paint came off when I was trying to finish. And I wasn't overly concerned about getting it 100% perfect because this is more of just a stylized stage kind of crazy guitar. I wasn't super concerned with getting everything flawless. And we only had 24 hours to do it, so. But alright, this is the Psychedelicaster. Let's plug it in and see how it sounds. I'm plugged into my 1965 Bassman, and here are my settings for that. And then I'm just going to be using my Jim Jones GTO Germanium Overdrive for a little bit of dirt. We're going to go through each position clean, and then with some overdrive. My Q12 cab is mic'd up with an SM57, and I'm just using a condenser mic for the room. the pickups sound really nice, clean. I really like the bridge pickup in split mode. It sounds like just a regular telly. Quality, kind of vintage style. And then humbucker mode, you get a little bit more of those mids, more of those lows, and a little bit more kick. So it's nice to have that option. Sounds good in humbucker mode too. The neck pickup is a little quiet. I tried to raise it up as much as I could, but it's still got a really nice mellow, kind of a jazzy tone. And in the middle, you get a nice mix of both in both split and humbucker position. All right, I'm going to try it out with a little bit of overdrive. So, final thoughts on the Psychedelicaster. So, yeah, this guitar just goes to show you what you can do in 24 hours with a kit and some know-how and some decent parts. So again, this is just a super inexpensive kit off Amazon. This is the Leo James Telecaster kit. I think I paid just over $120 for this thing. And I was really surprised with the quality of the wood and how everything fit together. It was really well done. The routes were nice, and yeah, there was no big issues at all. The only main thing that I had to do with the kit was it needed a fret level because some of the frets were high, and the nut needed some attention. I needed to cut those slots down a little bit because they were way too high. But overall, all of the holes lined up with everything, and the neck fit into the body really well. And just it really seemed like it was nicely finished, nicely sanded, no like QC issues at all. And I built this whole thing under 24 hours, and that includes drying time for both like the spray paint and the finish over top of that, and the painting and the assembly and the, you know, electronic work and the fret work. All of that was under 24 hours. So it just shows what you can do with, you know, not a lot of money, but with some know-how and some decent parts. And the aesthetic of this thing is not going to be for everyone. It's definitely going to be pretty polarizing. But, I mean, if you're creative, you can do anything you want on, you know, a kit. So I'm not really an artist, but I think this thing came out pretty cool. It's definitely got a vibe. Whether that's your vibe or not, that's up to you. But I'm pretty happy with the way it came out. And yeah, thanks again to Geiker. The parts they sent me were all great. They're just super high quality parts. They're pretty inexpensive. And they're really unique. I really don't see a lot of other options that kind of do the same things that they do. I really don't see a lot of options with the same like colors and materials as them. So yeah, definitely check out their link in the description and have a look. And use that link to buy something if you find something you like, and that helps out the channel. They're also having a big Black Friday sale if you want to go over there and check things out. I was quite impressed with the way the pickup sounded too. I mean, they're inexpensive pickups, but they really had a really nice sound. And the guitar has a nice weight. I really like the neck. It's that really big, chunky C-rounded neck profile that I really like. I've got bigger hands, so this is super comfortable. And the fret ends are nice and smooth. They weren't poking out like that. The frets are now super shiny and smooth. The action's nice and low. It plays really well. It stayed in tune really well too. Probably due to these locking tuners, which seem to be very nice. And the nut is way better cut now. Overall, it's just a really nice feeling playing guitar. And if you're into the way it looks, it's quite striking as well. But that's going to be it for today. Thank you for tuning in to Beckler Guitars and Repair, and I'll have more for you really soon. Thanks a lot.